Earlier this year, I got asked to give a keynote for a sales team. And the team was dispersed all across the world, and so they broadcast this keynote to all of their different respective offices. And they asked me to give a talk to inspire the team towards a path of success. How could the sales team be more successful? And so I broke that down into what I felt like were very tactical, usable ideas that they could leverage and take forth into this year. And the ideas were pretty simple. It was patience, persistence, and consistency. And the way that I brought forth these ideas was through stories. I told stories for each one of these different virtues, using people from our past and people that are still around us today. And so I wanted to share with you right now a little excerpt of that talk that I gave about consistency in particular, and about the story of a young man named Brock Purdy, who I believe is a fantastic example of what it looks like for you and I to wake up every day, show up more consistently on our path towards ultimate success. So, hope you enjoy. A true test of someone's character can be defined by what they do when nobody's watching. And so it's in this quiet place, it's in this silent place that I want to have our conversation about consistency. I remember watching a Nike ad campaign. It was their greatness campaign. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a line in that campaign that said, "Greatness needs a lot of things. An audience is not one of them." And so this is my definition of consistency. It's the things that you do when nobody's watching, the things that you repeatedly do when nobody's observing. So I want to tell you a quick story about a young man named Brock Purdy. Now, if you're an NFL fan or if you're a fan of national football, you will know who this guy is because he has come on the scene in the last 5 weeks and taken the whole nation by storm. If you know nothing about him, great. Let's go back. So at the beginning of this year, the NFL holds what's called a draft, where they pick all of the kids coming out of college into the NFL. Some people don't even get drafted, and those are called undrafted free agents. So the draft has 7 rounds to it. The first round is all of the hype and all of the excitement for who's gonna go first, who's gonna go in the first round, which quarterback, which wide receiver. There's all kinds of excitement. And the first round gets all kinds of media attention, and then day 1 ends, first round's over, second round begins, and there's some excitement starting to fade. Third round, fourth round, fifth round, you've never heard of these college players really. Sixth round, the final round is the 7th round. And it's at this time that the college players have been sitting around with their families waiting to get drafted. Sort of looking at everybody going, my expectations of who I was are not as high as what other people see me as. And you have this sort of letdown of all these people who gathered to celebrate you getting drafted into the NFL. Brock Purdy was one of the guys left in the 7th round, and with every draft pick, he got closer and closer to not being drafted. There's 262 draft picks in the entire NFL draft, and they got to number 261. He didn't hear his name. And on the 262nd draft pick, they called the name Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers. His family went nuts. He was so thankful, and he was gonna be an NFL player. Now, in the draft, there is a term that they give this last draft pick. It's called Mr. Irrelevant. As if it's not hard enough to go all the way deep into the 7th round to barely get invited into the NFL from being drafted, that they actually go as far as to call you Mr. Irrelevant. And so in the off season, they have a parade for this person, and it's called the Mr. Irrelevant parade, and they take him around to all these different nonprofits. And it's frankly kind of embarrassing. I was seeing something, I was like, does he hate this, or is he just happy to be drafted? I don't know. Is this a blessing? Is this a curse? Regardless, everyone knows you're Mr. Irrelevant. There's a very low likelihood that you're ever gonna be on the playing field. You're probably gonna be a forever backup or a forever backup, or maybe in 1 year you won't even be in the NFL. And so he goes through this off-season process and he begins his off-season training. And so for some context, the 49ers 2 years prior had drafted a quarterback in the first round, one of the sought-after athletes coming out of that year's draft class. They even traded picks to get up to get this guy. His name was Trey Lance. So this was sort of the next coming, right? And they had put all their eggs in one basket and said, this is our quarterback for the future. So at the beginning of this year, Trey Lance is the starting quarterback. And everybody's really excited to see what this young talent can do. And the whole world knows about him, or at least the whole nation knows about him. And he goes out and he plays 2 games. And in the second game, he breaks his leg, out for the rest of the season. It's a brutal sport. It was devastating. This young kid with so much potential couldn't play another snap for the rest of the regular season. So who goes in? Not Brock Purdy. The second string quarterback goes in. His name is Jimmy Garoppolo. Very talented quarterback, probably didn't deserve to be a backup, but he comes in and he fills the shoes of the starting quarterback. And he starts playing, and he starts playing well, and they start winning, and the Niners go on this huge win streak. And everyone is thinking, is this a year that the 49ers go to the Super Bowl? Is Jimmy Garoppolo a better quarterback than even this young kid that they just drafted? And things are progressing, and they get to week 14 and they're on a win streak, and everyone is like, these guys are the Super Bowl favorites. So I want to pause right here, and I want to shift our focus back to Brock Purdy. Every single week in practice, the starting quarterback gets what's called an installation, where you practice all of the different run and pass plays with the offense that is going to be relevant for that week's game. Now, the backup quarterback doesn't get that opportunity with the starting offense. They just don't. That's just not how it works. And so every single week after practice was over, the starting lineup would do all the installation, and then they would go and they would recover and they would do physical therapy, shower, whatever. And everybody would leave the field except for Brock Purdy. He would stay on the field, and to an empty lot, he would run every single play. He would run every single run play and every single pass play in his mind. And he did it to air. He did it week 1. He did it week 2. He did it week 3, 4, 5, 6. You'd think by week 8, he might have asked himself, maybe this is a little unnecessary. Maybe I could give myself a little bit of a break here. Maybe I can relax a little bit here. And yet every single week he kept coming back. Week 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And in week 14, when the 49ers were playing the Miami Dolphins, which at that time was thought to be a preview of what the Super Bowl could be, 2 of the best teams in their divisions coming up against each other. Jimmy Garoppolo is driving the field, and he goes to make escape a sack, and he breaks his leg. Who do we turn to? This no-name, Mr. Irrelevant rookie quarterback out of Iowa State that no one's ever heard of and no one's ever talked about, named Brock Purdy. I was watching that game. I'm a huge 49er fan, if you can't tell already. And I turned to my buddy and I said, that's it. The season's over. That was fun. Too bad. Better luck next year. And here comes this kid who looks like he's going to his junior prom, who probably couldn't grow facial hair if you paid him $1 million. And he trots onto the field and he starts playing. And he starts playing lights out. He's putting up touchdowns. He's running in for scores. It's like, is this his kid's first year? Has he been in the league for 7 years? The announcers couldn't believe it. The other team couldn't believe it. He rips off 30+ points against the Miami Dolphins, leading them to a victory. The whole nation was sort of like, who is this guy and where did he come from? And the next week they go, well, let's see if this was a fluke. He goes toe-to-toe with Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, and he destroys him, 35-7. Who is this guy? The next week, another win. Next week, another win. Next week, another win. He was one of the first rookies in history to win his first 5 starts on an absolute tear going into the playoffs. This graphic shows his stats at the end of the regular season. To say that Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant was completely out of line now. He was one of the most relevant players in the entire league. And as of 2 days ago, he had his first postseason playoff game, and he threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for 1, and passed for 332 yards or something like that. Something absolutely insane. This is no longer a fluke. This is no longer an accident. This is somebody who paved the way when nobody was watching. When everybody else had left the field and he stuck back, he was paving the foundation for the moment when his number was called. And that's what we have to set our sights on, is what are we doing? How are we cultivating this sense of inner progress? How can we seek out the quiet moments so that way we can grow this virtue of consistency? Going back to that Nike ad campaign that I referenced earlier about not needing an audience, the copywriters for one of the campaigns also wrote, "There are no grand celebrations here, no speeches, no bright lights. Somehow we've come to believe that greatness is for the chosen few, for the superstars. But the truth is, greatness is for all of us. This is not about lowering expectations. It's about raising them for every last one of us, because greatness is not in one special place and it's not in one special person. Greatness is wherever someone is trying to find it." So let me ask you, where are you trying to find it?